So November 2016, this was another lead up moment, rock bottom moment. I was fucking tweaked, like, and my door knocked at about 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 a.m., 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was here getting in another fucking codependent relationship with a much, much younger gentleman. And we're just here and I'm fucked. My daughter's at school and my door's knocking. And it's a bailiff.
Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for sharing your platform with me.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. Cause like you found me through Courtney, right?
Through Courtney, what a great episode, and I think too that you had recently kicked it with Jeff Vickers, who I'm good friends with. So I've been seeing you around, but I don't know much of your story, and I don't think you know any of mine. We just
I
started
don't know. I
following.
don't know any of
We
yours.
just
Yeah,
started following each other.
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, Jeff and I had him on back in September for Recovery Month. Because
Okay.
back in September, I did 30 episodes in a row for Recovery Month, and he was one of them. And then to raise awareness around overdose and relapse for the holidays, I did 37 in a row from Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve. And I know your Thanksgiving's different. We'll get to that. But America's Thanksgiving, he was in part of that 37 in a row too. And then I just did his show last Saturday night.
I
So
did
yeah.
his in November. It's an
Oh,
amazing. Pardon my reach.
oh, is that the one that you did the long one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So in November, no, that was a
That was a
different one.
different
That
one.
was a different
Okay.
one. He let me have free reign on my colorful language on his episode.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Jeff's like that. Jeff's a fun time to talk to. So what is your sober date then, Alex?
Okay, so I actually don't call it my sober date, my clean date,
Okay.
or my dry date. It's absolutely my rebirth date. A lot of my story you'll hear, right? Real transformation requires real honesty. So on April 22nd, 2017, is my rebirth date. From that moment forward, when I made admonition to self and I was finally brutally and fucking honest with myself and told myself you're nothing but a junkie and an alcoholic and you need fucking help and you need it now. From that moment forward, that brutal honesty with myself, and switching it into blind faith, right? For me, most revolutionary change that day was, I'm in a 12-step program. I stepped 1, 2, and 3 myself unconsciously to me because don't fucking think I even knew what the steps were before walking into the rooms of recovery that day. But
Yeah.
I walked into the rooms of recovery that day and there was no turning back since. And I went downtown on myself. Like I don't even look the same that I used to. So the physical transformation, the mental transformation, and the spiritual transformation.
Yeah. So, and what part of Canada are you in?
I'm in the nation's capital, so I'm in Ottawa,
Ottawa.
Gatineau. I live on the Quebec side. I work on the Ontario side. So I'm in a interprovincial town, but born in Montreal, raised in Toronto, so the big city life. And then came here for university. That's a big part of my story too. I was always academically successful, then professionally successful, and all this fucking success went to my head. That when we say we have an ego problem, and especially in alcoholism, right? That ism, that I, self, and me part of it, and how I was so self-absorbed and so self-centered. And it was just about moving up rank, being the youngest, the best at this, like a fucking whiz kid, and my career was everything until it wasn't anymore, and living that dual life, because I started using boozing at the age of 10, but I was able to maintain a separate, by night I was a completely different Alex than by day, the studious, fucking academically successful, professionally successful public service employee, until
Yep.
those worlds completely collided because I was fucking out to lunch. I was one sandwich short of a picnic by the end. And like those, when I go into step 1 today, it's not just about you know, the powerlessness, like the loss of control of self and the unmanageability of my life. I completely lost power over my mind. Cocaine and alcohol consumed my every thought by the end, so I consumed them. And that was my number one priority. So, not even thinking things through anymore, couldn't even make a logical or wise or rational decision for myself, all judgment out the window. So those poor decisions, my poor decisions in life completely came into the workplace, and
Yeah, I mean,
there was a
yeah, I
point in
mean,
time
you're
where
talking.
not even thinking things through it. And when when we say that you're creating your own insanity,
Yeah.
like it's pretty fucking crazy to be creating your own insanity, demise, misery, and ruin, right? And
Yeah,
that's
and you're
exactly what
talking
I was
about having,
doing.
yeah, you had cocaine and alcohol. That's like the best marriage since, like, Al Bundy and Peggy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like so dysfunctional. They have to work together. They work together every single time.
They do, because I'll tell you what, like, if it wasn't, and I always identify myself as an addict before I do as an alcoholic. Like Alex,
Yeah, so
addict
do
and
I. Yeah.
alcoholic, AAA threat. Because if I didn't have the coke, which I always had, I wouldn't have had the booze. Because trust me, I think there was like one time that I only fucking drank, and I was a fucking mess of a fucking drunk when I didn't have that cocaine kept me on fucking point, or I thought
Yeah.
it was keeping me on point.
Well, that you were medicating yourself because you were too smart for your own good. So you thought you knew how to do that yourself. You thought you knew how to medicate
I thought I
yourself.
was the shit. I was the
Yeah.
bee's knees, man. Like, and everything was below me, and everyone was beneath me.
And
You
you've
know,
been
it's
doing this since you were 10. So now, because I started drinking at 11, and I started drinking, like, looking back in retrospect, drinking alcoholically at 12. That's the first time I started drinking alcoholically, like, for a reason, to numb, to take away the pain. So, if you had your first drink at 10, how long did it take for you to, like, realize this could be a medicine that I could use to get through shit? Because I realized it by 12. So we
I
seem
don't
pretty
think
similar.
I don't think I realized what I was using it for. That came in my recovery as I started,
There was
recovering,
never a
uncovering,
conscious,
and
like,
discovering myself. I always knew I had a problem, but that deep introspection and reflection and realizing that drugs and alcohol were never the fucking problem.
oh, you
Only
were a narcissist.
only Yes, I was very and I will say it, and it's funny because if you look at the character
It's so
defects or
weird to say
character
it to
traits of an
somebody. Yeah.
addict and that of a narcissist, they're basically one and the same. And then put that together, you have fucking full blown. Like, I don't say I was an ego. I was egotistical. I was a fucking egomaniac. I was a raging lunatic.
Yeah, you
I
were like a
thought,
villain.
I truly thought I was the best. Like, I could outsmart, like, and this is what I prided myself on, and that's what I say, having started so young. And in our recovery circles, we say that we find ourselves in recovery. How the fuck can you find something you never lost? Drugging and drinking was my very identity in the end. Like, I
Yeah.
prided myself on that shit. I could out fuck you. I could out snort you. I could out drink you. I can out party you. I can out fucking do you. But those were the things that I wanted to outdo you in. So for
No.
me, and it's not, when I go back to like the drugging and drinking wasn't the problem. The amount of guys I slept with wasn't the problem. I do definitely have love, sex, emotional addiction as well, codependency issues. But so now coming back to recognizing that those were never the problem, as I started doing introspection on myself. I
Well,
have I have
congratulations. I can tell you this for your ego is, I've done over 100 episodes now, and you're the first person that I've straight up, like, just said, "Oh, you were a narcissist," because it was never as clear as day. Like, and I've never actually said it to somebody, and I'm going like, "Yeah, I was," because most narcissists would never be as accepting. That's how
I
you know
I
you're working a
actually I
program.
actually say it a lot in a lot of my shares, and I share quite
Well,
often,
that's how I
whether
know
I'm
you're
in a
working a
rooms or
program. A lot of
yeah.
people, I've talked to people, I run NA meetings, right? I run
Okay.
AA meetings. So I
Mhm.
talk to a lot of people
You
where
attended.
they're they're telling me about their character defects, but also telling me they're working the steps. You know what I mean? They're talking about character defects, but talking about, oh yeah, I worked the steps, but oh no, I don't have a problem with that. But you know what I mean? So, like, well, if you were honestly working the steps, you would be working through that and honestly talking about that. And you responding the way you did tells me everything I need to know about how you work your recovery. You know, is you're like,
And
oh yeah, I totally, So it was hard for you because, like, for me, I saw it right away, and You know what I mean? I knew what I was getting myself into.
So I'm known to be intense. I definitely work my program through and through. Again, right? That honesty piece. For me, honesty is the motherfucking tenet of all tenets. Of the 12 spiritual principles, like honesty to me today, and my integrity. Integrity is everything to me, my character, everything that I've gained in recovery, right? So I'm able to call myself out on my shit, and I'm able to call myself out on my shit like from my previous life, you know. So when I say that rebirth date too, because that life that I previously lived over the span of 28 years, and that woman that I had become completely ceased to exist from that moment forward. I wasn't shit for shit anymore. I was a junkie and an alcoholic like the rest of them. I was released, and I don't say from the bondages of self. I was released from the bondages of my own uniqueness. I was no fucking better or no fucking different than anybody else. And then if I didn't get to that point in my own head, I would have never walked into the rooms because I wasn't like those fucking people. For
But
so long, I thought I wasn't
yeah.
like those fucking people.
Oh, I've sat in those meetings and you know, and I've talked about this. It's so easy to relate in, but it's so easy to relate out. You know what I mean? Like, and just finding out if somebody is like the oldest of three, you know what I mean? I'm already relating in. But, you know, if they're not even that, I can say, well, our names are different, so we're not the same. I'm not going to listen to a word you say. You know, it's so easy to relate out when you want to relate out. But when you want to relate in and you want to be there, like, I'm not even surprised about how you live your recovery because of how you told me you lived your addiction. A lot of people, it mirrors it, right?
Mhm.
Because that's how we stay so sober is by doing it so out loud.
Well,
You know,
exactly. And chasing, and that's what I always say too, right? I am intense and I'm known to be intense, but I'm just chasing my recovery the exact same way I was chasing
hmm
that next fucking fix, high and drunk. And that was by any means and any lengths necessary. So yeah, I'm gonna fucking be full throttle into my fucking recovery because what I've come, that freedom, and now it's not even about rocking my fucking sobriety or my clean time or what have you. Like that's not even what I think about. It's about compromising my integrity, compromising my truth, but compromising what I've worked so hard in the last 4.5 years and some, the point that I'm at today, the life that I've worked so hard, the quality of life that I've worked so hard to have from both myself and my daughter. I'm a single mother, but also for, the peace of mind, freedom, and serenity that I've come so fucking hard to work for. And that's
now,
what I don't
did
want to
you have your
compromise
daughter in sobriety or in addiction?
in addiction. So she's 14. So she's, and that's something that definitely, in retrospect, so again, all my relationships were either codependent or absolute debaucherous. We've all facilitated and enabled each other. I never met any guy outside of a bar. So the only thing that I ever had in common with any man that I've been in a relationship with, and I do that in quotation marks because clearly they weren't fucking relationships at all, were the fact that we drug and drank together. Had my daughter, except that was my first foray into sobriety. It was forced sobriety. But for those 9 months, and a lot of people, including her very father, didn't think that I would be able to do it. I didn't even have a drag of a fucking cigarette or a sip of wine in that 9 months.
Because you're an intense person, I'm not surprised at all. Anything you're going to do it.
And
Once you set your mind to it, I feel like you're full
yeah,
throttle, you're doing it.
so unfortunately, she had to live, witness things that she probably shouldn't have. And, I exposed her to that lifestyle completely. As much as I thought I was hiding it well from her, I fucking wasn't. She's not stupid. She had to grow up very quickly, but her first 10 years of life, I was in the throes of active addiction. And that was when I had my spiritual awakening on April 22nd, 2017. Like I was literally in my bed, rushing like a banshee, like trying to fall asleep. And I got fucking woke, and I got woke real fast. Um, I couldn't live that life anymore. I was done. I was done. That gift of fucking desperation, done. Um, I was defeated. I was over. I was so, I was 38 years old. Felt like I was fucking 100. Like I was just so haggard and tired and exhausted of my own bullshit, really. But it wasn't fair to me, but it definitely wasn't fair to her. And she was going to be 10 years old in 2 months' time. And I was like, what kind of a fucking parent am I? My daughter's about to be 10 in 2 months. I started living this fucking way and living this life at the age of 10. Who the fuck am I? Like, Alex, you need to start walking the walk and talking the talk and step up to the plate and be a fucking parent. What the fuck are you doing with yourself? You know?
Hmm.
So that was a huge wake up call for me, you know. But in lead up to that day, like I had quite a few rock bottoms or wake up calls, you know. They were never enough to, but that day, like it was it, you know. And I always say to myself, like, had I known my life was gonna be this great today, I would have fucking done this years ago. But it just wasn't my time, you know. I probably wouldn't have been as serious or as intense as I am now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we've thought about it, but the other thing is like it's a fleeting thought until we get high again. That's the problem. Is like
by
I
by the
did.
end of it, that every
Yeah,
five minute interval between every next line and every next swig of whiskey, I'm like, this is fucking it. I'm
yeah.
done.
I
This
can
is the
tell you
last
what. I
one.
I
Oh,
was never.
it's only quitting if you actually stop.
I never was withdrawing and looking for content like ours. You know what I mean? Like I was never looking to find, positivity when I was going through it. And I hope that people are. And maybe it's just because it wasn't around in 2018 as much as it is today. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I just know when I was in the like throes of addiction in 2018, I don't remember seeing this kind of content. And like I said, I don't know if it was because of the algorithms and I wasn't looking for it, but or I don't know if people are just doing it more now because of COVID. And there was because anonymity was such a big deal when I first got in recovery. They're like, you can't talk about shit, you can't say shit, and I'm like, really?
But if people don't, we only know what we know, right? And experience is our teacher. You know what? I'm all down with anonymity, like the traditions, like I'm down
Yeah.
with it. But my anonymity is for me to do what I deem fit. And that's
Yep.
recovering out loud. It fucking saves lives, period.
Couldn't agree
You know,
more. Yeah,
but
because I kept my
I
mouth
didn't
shut
get
for a
on.
while and I couldn't do it anymore.
I was on Facebook, but I wasn't on Instagram until I fucking got into recovery. 30 days, I was very, very early into my recovery. And then I just found this whole other fucking community, and it's cool because some people today are like people that have been with me since the jump, my A1s from day one, like it's pretty fucking crazy. Like that we can harness that, and my background's actually in mass communications, so media and stuff, not traditional media systems, however, like journalism and
Yep.
radio, television, broadcasting, not this social media. This is a whole new game, right?
Yeah,
I'm
it
I,
really
I'm really
is.
dating myself here. I'll be
No, but
42
I'm
this weekend.
35. I'm 35. You know what I mean? I was on opiates, so opiates kept me young. So yeah, I'm 35. So I get like right now, my wife and I are watching that like the Dark Age of the '90s special that's on Hulu, and so I remember the different kinds of errors of broadcasting and what journalism used to be and how we received information differently in the 90s, via whether it was radio or TV, but we weren't getting it, at our thumbs.
Yeah.
Shit, that wasn't even a decade ago. Like I was just rewatching Entourage recently and they weren't being able to get information right away, you
No.
know.
Yeah.
So, my wife made fun of me for being a bro and liking Entourage. So out of spite, I rewatched it on my own in the office when she wasn't with me watching TV.
And we attract what we emit, right? Like I don't think I was fucking actively looking for fucking, oh, I'm gonna go on fucking Facebook and see if somebody's in recovery. That's not the way my fucking seed got planted whatsoever.
So tell
Um,
me about that thing, because I'm curious about that too.
okay, so I guess so just to go back to it because we kind of hit on it before, and I know you're gonna chop this up a little bit, but we were talking about it before. Drugs and alcohol were never the problem. I was an addict and an alcoholic long before I was an addict and an alcoholic. Long, long before I was admittedly an addict and an alcoholic. You know, my father, it's in my DNA. My father was an addict and an alcoholic. God bless his soul. He never found this way of life for himself or his family. Unfortunately, even though it was well within reach, I recognize that today, you know, but I understand his plights, his trials, and his tribulations all too well because I was that kind of parent as well for some time. I was present. I have exclusive custody of her. That's another thing, right? My fucking success. God, I won that shit in court, and that fucking went to my head too, man. Because like
Yeah,
I was
because you're
paying it out.
manipulating.
I
Now
was
you're
I was
manipulating
paying
the
it out to
courts.
be an addict and an alcoholic, but I still fucking won. So haha, motherfucker, that shit's on you. You know, like
Yeah.
that's how my brain worked, right? And so yeah, so you know, and going back to her again, because she heard me in a podcast interview a couple of years ago, and it was the first time that she heard that, you know, that she wasn't planned or whatever. And she said, "Oh, so I was a mistake." I said, "You were definitely not a mistake. You just weren't planned, but you weren't a mistake. You are the greatest achievement and gift of my life. It just took me 10 years to start fucking showing you, and I will be forever living in amends whereby my daughter is concerned." You know, I got to show her. I got to show her that shit.
Yeah, the closest ones to us, we've already told them enough. We
Yeah,
can't tell them enough anything.
yeah.
So all we can do is show,
Yeah, by
and
by finally being the woman I'm raising today, you know, walking the walk, talking the talk, going back again to that being a fucking parent, being a mother, but you know, being able to provide for both her and me that quality of life that we're both so deserving of, and that we could both grow, thrive, and prosper in together today, you know. And but it took me 10 years to finally show her that she was everything to me, you know. um,
it
because
takes what it takes.
I started prioritizing myself, and my recovery is my top priority first and foremost for me. But ultimately, she's gonna reap she's gonna reap the benefits in the end, right?
Yep.
So again, making sure that my recovery stays my top priority, so that everything and everyone I love, including my very self, never fucking comes last again in my life. Um,
Now, can we backtrack to 10?
Backtrack to 10. So
Yeah.
10,
So
I guess you
what
could
what
say.
is your
So
introduction, or why is your like for me, my introduction was curiosity, just straight up curiosity.
okay.
So like, what was your
So
introduction?
so for me now today, like in retrospect, so again, my dad being an alcoholic and an addict, I was, you know, I have severe daddy abandonment issues. I also have an identity crisis from a very young age that I've identified, so that's going to get into it in a second. You know, I'm a woman of mixed origin. My dad was black, my mom's white. So never being white enough for the white and black enough for the black and not fucking fitting in. But addiction doesn't discriminate, nor do the people that you're drugging and drinking with. They don't fucking
Yeah.
care what fucking color, shape, form, size you are, what fucking part of the world you're in. Like we only have one thing in common. So I found that entourage very young. So at the age of 10, you know, I had an older sister. My mom's French Canadian, so I am French. Like that's my maternal tongue and you know, a first language. I live in Quebec. It's inherent in our culture. Like, let's get real. Wine, especially, it's every dinner. It's in all our food. It's inherent in our culture. It's a French thing, right? So I was introduced to it very young. My parents are both very, very liberal. They were both artists in their own right. My mother was a professional ballerina and model, and my dad was a trained Shakespearean actor, and they both so very liberal upbringing, you know, discipline. I didn't really have any. My mother being a single mother, you know, angel in my life today, I completely took advantage of her. So when I go in now into being an addict and an alcoholic, long before being an addict and an alcoholic, like I think back to it today, those character defects, the cheating, the stealing, the manipulation, I would fucking do that to my mother, like at a very young age. Like I needed those fucking Patrick Ewings, and I needed them fucking today because in 2 weeks' time, they're gonna be totally fucking out of style, and
And you have to be the first, and you
I
have to be
need
the
them
cool
right
one.
now. And I don't care if you're telling me and that You work 3 jobs 7 days a week to provide for me. And I don't fucking care if you're telling me straight in my face, Alexandra, we got to wait till my next pay. I really don't have, I'll fucking sit there and cry for 2 hours until you take me to the goddamn store and fucking buy me those shoes now. Instant gratification, right? Like I needed them now. I needed everything now. You know, I go back to these things today and I'm like, holy shit. So I was so unappreciative of my poor mother, you know, who did everything she could to provide for us, basically killing herself. Like she, you know, at the age of 12, my mother had breast cancer. And let's get real, like back in the day, you know, science, modern medicine, it wasn't what it is today. Like we almost lost her. And
Yeah, you're talking what, like the mid '90s, right?
Yeah, I still treated her like as though nothing was wrong and she was healthy and like a real fucking. It's funny because she says I'm the only white mother with, you know, I'm the only white mother who's a slave to 2 black children. So that was her joke at the time, because that's exactly the way I treated her. I was so ungrateful, unappreciative, a spoiled fucking brat. I would never let her say no to me. There was just no way you were saying no
And
to
I'm
me.
sure she had to deal with shit too because she is the mother, because she's a stigma too.
Yeah.
Like she's
Yeah.
there's you know in the mid '90s, you know, especially in French Canada, I can't imagine there's a huge population of
Well,
mixed race kids.
I was in Toronto at the time, so she was
Okay.
raising us in Toronto, so the big city. One of her jobs was a flight attendant, right? So she was rarely home. Me and my sister's older, so of course I was the cute 10-year-old. Let's see you smoke. Let's see you do this. Let's see you do that. Oh my gosh, he just took a toke off of the joint. Like I fucking thought I was cool as shit from a very young age, right? And
Yeah.
popular. I always had so many fucking people with me. Like I was
Because you
always
had friends over because your mom was always on
having the
on a
parties, letting my friends steal shit from her, holes punched in her wall when she's coming back. Like my poor mother, the shit we put her through. Like it's just absolutely nuts, you know, and no matter how many times I failed her, or that unconditional love piece, like I'm lucky, I'm so blessed. And today, like, you know, she comes to my Zoom celebrate. A lot of people like on Instagram actually, because like for my Zoom celebrations and stuff, the last couple of years, obviously we've been having them on Zoom, but a lot of people have like met her and heard her side of the story, right? And she's absolutely my fucking angel today. And I realize how much I took for granted. I was taking fucking life for granted. You know,
So
everything
how
was
fast
owed
did
to
you
me.
move out?
Everything
Did you
was
go
owed
away?
to
You said
me.
you went away to college, right?
Yeah, so so very young on, it's funny because my mother being a professional ballerina, so at the age of 13, I actually came to Ottawa where I am now. On a full on, it was the only French arts high school in my province at the time. I came on a scholarship to go into contemporary dance at this high school in Ontario. And luckily enough, my mother wasn't going to let me get her 13-year-old daughter, who's already fucking out of control, her own apartment. So I found a boarding house with nuns. And, you know, up until that point, my mother's very practicing Catholic. I was raised Catholic. Up until that point, you know, I still like I still believed in my religion. I believed in a God. You know, that faith was there, and religious belief. But you know, that year living with the nuns, like first of all, coming from, you know, being 12 years old and being told that I had to be at home by 8 p.m. after what I'm living in Toronto anyways, you know, my mother, like I had no discipline. So coming into that discipline and structure and them trying to fucking control me, right? I think my inner rebellion, like that's when I started really getting rebellious. And then going to an arts high school, fuck, I was the best dancer on acid. So, you know, the weed smoking turned into fucking dropping at you know, LSD every fucking day at school because I'd have like 4 hours of dance class and I was the best fucking dancer high ever. And, you know, and let's just say
I can't imagine peaking on acid while like doing like fucking twirls and shit like that and being a fucking ballerina like and twirling around. But like, is like,
well,
were you ever?
it was contemporary
I
dance,
don't know
right?
the
So it
difference.
really allowed modern dance. So
Okay.
not ballet. I did have ballet class, but modern dance. So it was more
But
contemporary. And
still, you are
we
like
had a
spinning
we
the
had a live
room.
bongo drum player fucking right there with us. I was fucking grooving. It was dope.
Yeah. I'm talking about
But
the streaks. Like, it's almost like you're going to a club every day and you're like a fucking teenager. Like, and you're living the life of basically, and at this time, the movie 13 is coming out. Did that have any influence on you? Like,
that came out. Wait, I think I was
okay, you were
older
like
than
six.
13 when that came out.
I think
So
it came out in like 99. So you would have been like 16ish. Like, you would have been a little bit
99,
older.
I was already in university.
Were you?
So that I'll get into in a second. My academic success, right? So, anyways, the nuns sent me home the next year. My dance career was short-lived. They wanted nothing to do with me anymore.
I'm
Um,
surprised
yeah,
with that.
and
Did they know you were getting high?
no, they didn't know. It was
You were
funny.
just a basket case of a person because you were getting high.
My mother allowed me. She wrote them a note to allow me to go sleep over at a friend's house every weekend. Without just a blanket approval to leave the nunnery. I
The
don't know if
nunnery.
the
Yeah, I was gonna.
nunnery, the
That's what
nut
I was gonna
house,
say too.
the nun house on the weekends. But that's when I
Coven.
started getting into the bush parties again with the high school I was at. I was going to high school with musicians and theater people, and like it's also in the art scene, right?
How
It's
was
unfortunate
heroin?
that it's
Was
that
heroin
went.
big around then too?
Um, you
Heroin
know,
started becoming big around the
I
mid '90s
dabbled
around
in it.
here.
So it's funny because when I went back to Toronto, it was the early infancy of the rave scene in Toronto. I was a raver. I always say I danced myself to a life of addiction. I really did. Got into the rave scene, and that was it. I've tried everything and anything under the sun. Meth, whatever. But what really ever stuck with me, and lucky enough, the heroin, like I just, fucking,
Well,
I
you're an intense person.
I never
You
took,
need to be up. You
I
can't be down for
never,
too
yeah,
long.
exactly. Like I fucking bad tripped so bad in Montreal one hot summer day, and I was like, what the fuck? I'll never fucking do this shit again. I had taken it a couple of times, but it really wasn't my thing. However, like I love needles, I have piercings everywhere, whatever.
Yeah.
So thank God I never
Neither did
I
I.
didn't take it, because that would have been probably the end of me.
And I
But
knew that about myself. That was the conscious thinking that I was doing. Was I knew if I was to go to shooting dope, there's no coming back. And what we relate about, what you said earlier, is I was huge into snorting. That was my thing, and my ego about it. I had a big ego. I've told a story before, where so I lived in the Amish country, right, in Pennsylvania, and for the last couple of years of my addiction, and for like the last few years, I do a drive of an hour and a half, 2 hours each way to go get pills and drive back. And sometimes I would be withdrawing too bad to even do that, and I would have a little bit of extra money, and I would pay a dude to pick him up for me and drive him out to me, and I would throw him like $100 as a tip for driving 3 hours.
mhm.
So this one night he's on his way, and he's bringing like 20 of them, and I'm like doing that math of like, all right, I can do two now, and I'll have two for when I go to bed. Two, you know what I mean? Like, and how I can space them out, And of course he arrives, and he brought a friend with him for the trip because it's a long drive, middle of the night, and he comes up to my garage where I was smoking, and he was like, hey, I told him how you can do six at one time. Can you show him? And he's bringing me 20, 30. So yeah, I'm like, of course I can show him how I can snort six at one time. Like, and right away, my entire math I was doing is thrown out the window because I broke up six, which is basically the later and the mornings that I
Um,
had planned out, all in one line, just to prove to somebody that I could do it.
yeah.
Like, it's so
and,
fucked.
and it's funny too, right, that you mentioned that, because let's go back to that ego, right? And I can outdo you, out party you, out snort you, out fuck you, just fucking outdo you. And that's what I prided myself on. But that, and I think you just spoke to it so well, as that this, we have a disease of perception. And that perception kept me in my fucking denial for so long. So it's really funny because you know how I was so fucking pretentious and I was better than everybody else. Guess what? Crystal, fucking that's like fucking coke for fucking poor people. Only the best for my nose. And I don't do pharmaceuticals because I only do illicit shit. You know, I wouldn't do opiate because you can actually get a prescription for that and get it at the pharmacy. There's no way I'm fucking touching that. That even in my own thinking, that's how I was. Oh, and you're drinking fucking beer? Like, you're nobody to me. Like, it better be fucking whiskey and it better be the best of the fucking best, you know? Like, isn't it fucking crazy?
I mean, it's almost typical though at the same time. You know what I mean? Because we all have the ways of justifying it. We
It's
all
my
have we
rational
all
life. Yeah.
we're all gonna have the different ways of keeping it going and making this okay. And I know that this person thinks that I'm doing it wrong, but what the fuck do they know? They have this wrong with them anyway, and you start judging them instead to make yourself feel better about them. You know what I mean? You're just shining them, you know. So yeah, it's almost typical, but at the same time, we all have our different ways of being typical, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so by the end of it though, and don't get me wrong, like that's what I always say. It was a fucking party. It was a fucking party at first until it was party no more and party Alex of one, over the span of time. And I don't know where along that line, like, no pun intended, but like where along that line from the age of 10 to the age of 38, where along that line it went from recreational use to daily habitual abuse. But
By yourself.
it went there quickly. It went there quickly. But no, but I'd even say, like, looking back on it today, I was regularly using every fucking day, probably at the age of 12. But for
Yeah,
me, it was so fucking normal. It was so fucking normal. It was so regularized. It was my way of life. And
yeah,
I was
yeah.
academically successful. So let's get back to that. Grade 10, I wanted to be a high school dropout because I wanted to be a fucking party person and rave my life away. But guess what? You don't make a lot of money fucking being a party person, But if I could get paid for that to be my profession, I would have probably chose that as a profession back then. And I wanted to drop out of high school. But again, Alex, the pretentious Alex, the narcissist, the better than everyone else, these people in high school are starting to get fucking old, shit's getting old here. Like, people are not open-minded and they're so judgmental and the girls are all in a clique, and because I fucking get high with the guys every day, they call me a slut, like, like that kind of shit. And I'm like, this is so cliquey and like bullshit. Like, I'm gonna fucking fast intense, right? I don't do anything. Even my mom, like was saying, she's like, you were an intense addict and alcoholic, but you were intense in all areas of your fucking life. You always have been, right? So I decided that year, I'm going to fucking university next year because people there are all philosophical, love, drinking, like partying, whatever. Everybody's open. There's no cliques, the the jocks are not hanging out with the jocks. Like, everybody is like a blended place, whatever.
Yeah.
So
College
so
is where you
I
start
decided
finding
that
yourself for the
year.
first time.
So I decided at the young age of 16 or whatever, I was supposed to be going into, and at that time in Ontario, we had actually like what was known as, it wasn't known as grade 13, but they were academic credits that you had to get in order to go to university. Like, it wasn't just up to grade 12. I skipped my entire grade 12 year and ensured that all my academic credits to go towards university came into my number of required credits to graduate high school. I went to the university at the age of 17. So I then again left, came back to Ottawa. Remember where I came and went at the young age of 12 to be a dancer. I came to Ottawa and went to university. I had my university degree at the age of 20, and I don't know how I fucking got it, but I will tell you what, like, I'd be sitting there writing my essays. Shit, last call at the bars at 2 a.m. It's fucking 1 a.m. Okay, I'm gonna, I'm gonna print it because at that time there was no like email submission or
Yeah.
whatever. I'll go
Yeah.
bring it to my professor tomorrow morning. I'm done. Okay, guys, I'm fucking on my way. Like, let's go. I got an hour left. To get it in me, and like, let's stay up all night. Like, I like that continuous partying at my university back in the day. There was 4 bars on site. I had my sister's fake ID. You know, so it was, and again, remember going back to my priding and glorifying it. You know, people would meet my sister because my sister was in the nightlife in Toronto still back then. And people from my university would like bump into her or whatever and be like, oh my God, Alex fucking Talbot's your sister. Like, she's the only girl I know that could sit at Roosters. So Roosters was one of the pubs on campus that could sit at Roosters on Thursday because pitchers were like $5 or something, and could drink like 10 pitchers to herself in 2 hours. That's my fucking sister. Yeah. You know?
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, you know, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and, you know, all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, you know, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you know, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
That's your
Managed to get
legacy.
my university degree though, and got into the federal government of Canada at a very young age, and not entry level, like, you know, right away middle management, and started getting, you know, they were pumping money into me. I was going to be the youngest executive, you know, I was a whiz kid. Again, though, by night, what was happening, like, you know, when I go into my sex addiction, like, it's not, and that comes with the daddy abandonment issues and always trying to seek that love in all the wrong places, and that male presence in my life that I absolutely needed all the time. So, you know, I go again, full on intensity in that. It wasn't like, you know, I slept with like 20 people. I can't even count them. Like, and I didn't even know their fucking names. The compromising situations I would put myself in, and my safety and my security, my womanhood, like, you know, like these things that I think about today, like, wow, Alex, like you've always had a higher power with you for you to be here to live to tell the fucking tale, first of all.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's just no way, like, fucking waking up on the other side of the city, like, with a guy you don't know, like, you know, he could have been a fucking mass murderer. Like, I don't fucking know. And I'm letting these people into my house with a fucking daughter, you know, later on in life. I never stopped that way of living until she was 10 years old. You know, like, I just think about it, like, nobody was getting vetted at the door. They could have very
Yeah.
well been child molested. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, no thinking for myself. No, and you know, like, looking back on it today, it was absolutely, you know, I was definitely, you know, a complete lack of fucking self-respect for myself. Therefore, I didn't demand it or command it in return, nor did I give it, you know, and self-respect is self-love. Let's get real, right?
Yeah, and that's something that you find in sobriety, you know, and that's something you find when you get clean and, you know, when, like you said, rebirth, you know what I mean? Because that's when you start looking back and see, what did I do? What are the patterns? And you go, oh, wow. You know, and I'm sure it was probably in step work, you know, where you're starting to write things down and relive things where you're like, oh, I should probably talk about that. We're gonna need to get into this because I forgot about that, you know, because it's one of those things where it just it's all one big mess. And
Yeah.
first we need to take away the drugs and the drinks. And then once we take that away, then we can start working and looking at ourselves to see what caused this. And you
There's
know,
so much, you know, there's always those like childhood trauma. So like even at the age of 10, you know, like, and I'm sorry, you know, 20-year-old man and 10-year-old girl have anything in fucking common, you know, but smoking weed with older men and hanging out with them, and, you know, making out with them. Okay, not sexual, but that's fucking sick. Like, honestly, that's sick. So, you know, like, going back to those like traumatic events in my life, and there's always underlying issues, right? So for me, And when I came into recovery on that day, you know, I completely let myself go. So I was 225 pounds by the end of it. There is such thing as coke bloat. You know, that's what I always say. The powder diet fucking only works for so fucking long.
Chris Farley, every time Chris Farley was using is when he was at his biggest. When Chris Farley was like not ever thin, but when he was like looking good and like on SNL and he was like, you know, not looking fat and like really, really bad and gross, that's when he was clean. Every time he looked really awful and just like huge, it was because he was on coke again.
Yeah.
So no, and Artie Lang, same thing. And me, I was like 340 pounds when I got into recovery, and I was on opiates, you know. So
Well,
I
and like the former mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, like with his crack, you know, like he was a crackhead, and
he's like Chris Farley could have
overweight.
played him
God
if he
bless
would have
him.
lived. If Chris Farley would have lived longer, he could have played him in like a fucking movie. I could totally see Chris Farley playing Rob Ford. Actually, I had a girl on my show where she talked about doing crack in Ottawa, and she's a British girl, but she's talking about making her way eventually to Ottawa, and just for like because she needed citizenship for a little bit before she came back to the States. You know how it is, I'm sure. So she was staying over there, and she talked about doing crack for the first time with her boss. I said, "Was your boss Rob Ford?" And it was just like, and I ended up finding pictures from like that night when they were like undercover and they were like recording him in the motel room. Oh my God, that to me, like, you know, if you don't know, you have to like just give it a
Yeah.
Google. It's worth the Google.
Yeah, everybody check it out. Former
Do
mayor
you
of
do you
Toronto.
already?
His brother's now the premier of the province, but and he passed away a couple of years ago. But yeah, that was quite the scandal. The mayor of
Yeah, sure
Toronto, a
was. That was like a
crackhead.
decade ago. Yeah. Now, do you follow Tiffany Hamilton? She has a podcast called Never Alone.
I don't think so.
You should, and actually, I'm gonna let her know. It's called Never Alone Support, and it's on YouTube. And she's been on my show, and she was looking for a guest in Ontario the other day. She was looking for a live guest, and I found her one. But I'm gonna let her know about you too because she's in, I think, Elmvale. I'm gonna take that part out. But yeah, she is in Elmvale,
Okay.
ELM. But she's always looking for live guests.
Okay.
And her story, she has 250,000 followers on TikTok.
Okay. I'm not
She,
big. I will not go on TikTok. I don't know
but
why.
she
I'm just
has
like I
like
cannot
6,000.
more social media.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
her Instagram is big too, though. Her Instagram is growing. She has
Okay.
like 6,000 on Instagram. But she talks about how her stepdad, you know, sexually abused her from 3 to 15, and that was basically her boyfriend from 3 to 15 because her mom just let it happen and she didn't know any different. So, and her story is like intense, but she puts it out there, and she's worth to follow on. You could find her easily in my followers list or my following list or whatever on my page, and you'll see
Okay.
her. But I'm gonna let her know to hit you up.
Okay, and I think that's so important to note, right? Like, you know, we each have our own struggles and our own pasts and everything, and but we're still so similar, you know. I think, and we're not alone. We're never alone, you know. And I can't stress that enough. Like, I know it's the fucking scariest thing you're gonna do, but it's the most courageous thing that you could do for yourself is reach the fuck out, right? And
And
there's
that,
there's
yeah,
there's a
that's
flavor for everyone today. You don't like that fucking meeting you just went to, fucking go to another one. You don't like that podcast you listened to, you don't like what the fuck's coming out of my mouth tonight, like fucking listen to somebody else speak. There is a flavor for everyone. Keep reaching out, keep connecting. You know, the opposite of addiction is absolutely connection. And find where you're comfortable. You know, I started in one fellowship, I found another one. Now I'm part of three, but like, you know, because I wasn't comfortable in those rooms. So, you know,
it takes what it takes to find where you're going to be comfortable, but be okay with being uncomfortable, basically.
yeah.
You know, for the first time, you know, it's going to be weird. You know, it definitely, I remember how awkward early sobriety was. You know what I mean? Like my first foray in recovery, that first like 6 months, especially when the pink cloud went away. I don't know about you, but like, cause I was really intense too. Like we both know Jeff and we both know sober slogan. So what's the slogan? And we talks about 90 and 90, right? And I did 250 and 90 because I'm intense too, and you talk about how
One meeting too many, 1,000 never enough.
and guess what? You talk about living your addiction like living your sobriety like your addiction. When I came back from sober living and I was being on my own again, I found a meeting an hour from my house that I went to 3 times a week because in my head I had to drive as far from my sobriety as I drove from my addiction. So I understand your intensity because I live that way. But then eventually the pink cloud does lift off. And then shit feels really fucking hard. And I remember that happening to me right around 7, 8 months. Like that's when like I remember going, oh, this is fucking real. And and I'm not going back to that. And the pink cloud is now gone. And I'm feeling hurt and I'm feeling confusion. I was trying to date for the first time, which I knew I was doing it early, but I wasn't going to you know what I mean? I was trying to justify it and ended up leading to a relapse with drinking. But that didn't happen until I was 13 months. Literally on my 13th month is when I picked up drinking again. But I'm so fucked in the head, just like, we talk about with their ego, is when I relapsed with drinking, I justified it by working the steps every single day still. And guess what? I didn't go overboard with my drinking. I did a 10 step every single day. I checked myself. If I did have a drink, how many? Did I drive? All that kind of shit. I didn't do anything irresponsible. What got me to stop again was just a fucking hangover. I woke up on leap day and I realized, and I was hungover as shit for the first time in 9 months. And that's when I had started 9 months previous. Hungover as shit. And I realized I drank a bottle of Jack because Jack was my thing. JD for JD, right? And that was my thing. And I said to my wife, she was an alcoholic. Her story is on my page. She was an alcoholic before we met. And then when we met, she was like a moderator, right? She would drink here and there. And then she liked the fact that I was sober. And then I went out by myself, literally not even with her. And then I had to tell her, listen, I drank tonight. I just needed to see what happened. And I'm good, and nothing's wrong. I poured 2 out even. I was justifying pouring 2 out. And, we all fucking are. But when I woke up that day and I said to her, listen, like, I either need to start drinking now or we can have the coolest fucking sober date ever, a leap day. And we can both just quit on leap day today, 2/29, and get an anniversary every 4 years. And the hell unique is that? And she was like, oh, that's right. That is a cool sober date. And then we just said, fuck it. And we haven't had a drink since. Quarantine happened 2 weeks later. It's like, fuck.
And kudos to everybody out there. I have a lot of sponsees who are, who came into recovery during the last, I can't even believe it's been fucking like almost 23 months. So I'm not going to say the last year anymore. It's fucking,
I know.
I'm like in a fucking virtual fucking time warp. Like, I don't even know what fucking year we're in anymore. Pandemic this, pandemic that. Anyways, but yeah.
So, and you guys are even crazier because I have friends in Canada because like I got into because like I said, I use cannabis in my recovery. So I got into like the cannabis community first before I got into the recovery side of it. And then I started seeing cannabis recovery creators and started following them too. And so that's kind of how I kind of stumbled upon it, was from the cannabis side of it. But I have a lot of friends up in Canada from the cannabis community. And I remember how intense the lockdowns initially were for you guys.
It still is. So I've been in like I'm in Quebec where it is the most intense, where it's always been the most intense. Our curfew's being lifted on Sunday, but we've had a curfew again for the last 3-4 weeks.
Quebec as in Quebec City?
Quebec, the province, the entire province. It's a province-wide
okay.
curfew. We're down to, only one family per dwelling, or no private gatherings anymore. Our curfew, at least this time around, is not 8 p.m. It's 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. We're not allowed out of our fucking houses.
I was just on a podcast in Quebec.
Okay.
I'm a live one called Agree to Disagree.
Okay.
His name is Luigi Costanza. I remember that because of Seinfeld. But he does it on live on Facebook and YouTube. So, and
Okay.
I like his name is Luigi Costanza, and his name it's Agree to Disagree, and I'm going to give a shout out just because I liked being on his show. We did it live, and we talked about sports. We talked about my addiction. We went back and forth, and lately he has been going off about what you are talking about. So, like, he's been
It's
so
fucking
upset.
nuts. It's fucking nuts,
That's all
honestly.
he's been talking about for the last like 2 or 3 weeks.
But you
Yeah.
know what, you guys, you know what? The way I live my life today, it is all outside of my fucking control. Like I don't have, I either fucking embrace it or I fucking resist it. And whoa, and if I fucking resist it, like it's gonna, so last winter, so let's get back into that, and you were saying your relapse in like that 7 month time frame into your recovery when the pink cloud lifted and everything. I've had very hard moments in my recovery, and I'm pretty one that has, like, I always say I have it on fucking lock. If that's one thing I have in my life on lock, it's my fucking recovery. But last year, pandemic again, I'm a competitive bodybuilder now. So, I could just come back from an emotional fucking high. I went and competed for my country. I represented my country on an international stage in
Of
Vegas.
course you did, with how
Went
intense you were.
went to LA, came back, had that post comp depression set in, my body dysmorphia kicked in, my character defects and my behavioral patterns started resurfacing and morphing into new forms of addiction. I went into a deep depressive state. And when we talk about paralysis by analysis, like I didn't work for a month and a half, 2 months. I was literally in bed on fucking Instagram fucking all day. Um, having a rough go of it, and something had to give, so that's where I go into, when I was that 225-pound woman walking into the rooms of recovery that day, a few short weeks later, I read the John C. Maxwell quote, you know, change something you do daily, change your life. Your success lies in your daily routine. So I completely overhauled my daily routine. Remember, my daily routine was just drugging and drinking and going to work and saying
Just
I was
getting by.
saying
Yeah.
I was a good mother. But like, yeah, so, and so I completely overhauled my daily routine. I started seeing how nutrition, when I adopted clean living. So unlike you, live and let live though, and it's the lesser of the two. But for me, I've adopted a zero tolerance policy. I don't so much put refined sugar in my body because it's a drug. So when I adopted clean living, I adopted clean eating, clean 100, and that ridding myself of toxic people, places, and things was not just, it was ridding myself of toxic thoughts, ridding myself of, substances,
Did you quit smoking too?
right down to the food I consumed, right? And the food I consumed, like, let's get back to that, because as much as I would be on 2 3 day fucking benders, 4 day benders, drinking and drugging all that whole time, come day 5, when I decided it was maybe time to get like a couple of hours of sleep in to start the fucking cycle all over again and put some food in my body, within that 2 hour time frame, I was literally eating fucking, like, I could literally eat a fucking 2 3 whole pizzas to myself. Fucking, a lot about Quebec, so la poutine, my fucking cheese curds, fucking gravy and French fries. I could eat that fucking all day long. The pop, the chips, you know. I was, no shit, I lived a waste taste life. Everything I consumed, right down from the people I hung out with, everything I consumed was fucking junk.
Yep. And that was the other thing that I meant to tell you about Tiff was she also lost, was bigger in addiction, and when she got sober is when she got healthier. So that was the other thing that you two had in common that I want to make sure you two get linked up, because that, like you said earlier too, the opposite of addiction is the connection. And it is so
Yeah.
important that we are meeting as many people as
And
possible,
especially
because
like-minded individuals, and that's how and I'll get into Sober Active Canada and my national nonprofit recovery-based community that I launched a couple of years ago. But, so when I read that John C. Maxwell quote, and for me, like, I have a mental obsession, a physical compulsion, and a spiritual malady. My disease, and I always put it with a hyphen mark, I have a dis-ease of self. I'm not comfortable in, with, and by myself. So for me, I have to attack those three, mind, body, and soul, on the fucking daily. My daily reprieve is not only contingent upon my spiritual maintenance, it's absolutely contingent upon my spiritual, mental, and physical maintenance. And so I started, I started doing the mental exercise and the spiritual exercise every day. I have my recovery devotional in the morning. Today, that means reaching out to my sponsees as well. Back when I first started, I didn't have any sponsees, but going into prayer and meditation and I have a positivity box, reading a positive affirmation, applying it, or seeing how it's going to play out in my day, setting the tone for my next 24, doing the physical exercise. But holy shit, I was so out of shape. I couldn't even do 2 minutes of fucking cardio, 2 minutes of hip hop cardio. So as much as I say, I danced I raved myself to a life of addiction. I danced myself back to health 28 years later. Because so I got into the yoga thing, and I started noticing the mind, body, soul, and breath connection and work that had to be done there. And going and connecting, not only connecting to self and higher power, but connecting to community. So in the rooms, but also I found this lovely community of like this yogi here that had this group of ladies that would go out into the mountains like one day a week or whatever, and do yoga practice and meditation and all that shit. And really
that breath work is still really like it's a lot, like that's a new thing too. Not it's newish. It's definitely newer.
Yes.
There a lot of people don't even know what breath work is. And I just heard it earlier today because I was watching that documentary, like I said. And who was that kid? He was on Baywatch and he ended up becoming a drug addict. And he does breath work now and he works as an addiction counselor.
Okay.
But what do you do with that? Like, can you explain that more for people that don't know what that is?
I do a lot of conscious breathing, and it's funny because I do have my health and lifestyle coaching certification. So as much as I thought I was invincible and nothing would catch up to me. And when I went into the beginning there, my poor, I've paid the high cost for my poor decisions. I was in the federal government, very very good job, working for. Pretty much the top ranking bureaucrat of a department for a very long time. And, I was using my government travel card to travel to the liquor store by the end, to do cash advances. I was using taxpayer funds to fund my fucking habits. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And
never got arrested or never had to.
Luckily enough, I was 1 month into recovery. I got summons into the big boss's office. I thought I was doing great because I was already a month into recovery. And within 15 minutes, I was being escorted out of the building. I lost my job, and I wasn't just beginning career or end career. Like I was full on mid-career, 18 years of pensionable service. So that gave me, that could have went a completely different way had I not been at least 1 month in. Don't think the thought didn't cross my mind to take my severance package and fucking run with it. Because that did. I was like, fuck, man, I could go fucking get loaded right now, right? Like this fucking, I'm going to go get loaded right now. And then I was like, or fucking take this opportunity, Alex. You've kind of been unhappy there anyways. You haven't had time to look for a new job. You haven't had time to do it. Fuck, this is a blessing. And it was a blessing in fucking disguise. I had no more job for the first time in fucking however long in my life. I did not have a job. My only job from that point forward was going fucking downtown on myself, mind, body, and soul every fucking day and working on myself.
Now, did you go to rehab or did you just start going to meetings?
No, I just started going to meetings, and then now this is where I go into, the mind, body, and soul work.
Did they know that you had been going to meetings?
They
did your work know?
You know what? I'm kind of, and today, like, that's resentment, whatever. At the time, I was like, how could they do this to me out of left field? Like mental health is so important, and stuff in the government of Canada, employee mental health. I never had a grievance against me as a manager. I never, this came out of completely left field. Nobody gave me the opportunity and said, Alex, we know you're very sick. Maybe you should use the employee assistance program, or, you know, you should go get treatment, or you should go seek help. Nobody ever came to me and offered me, like when I walked in that room that day, I did not know that was happening.
But I
Like it just
think they
came out
did
of
for
such,
you what you couldn't do for yourself at that point. That was your higher power doing for you what you couldn't do for
yeah.
yourself, which was remove you from a job that had you in a toxic lifestyle.
Yeah.
You
And you
know,
know what? And it kind of was in, because I could do that job with my eyes closed by the end of it, you know, like in that 24/7 cycle, and not prioritizing myself or my family, and like just fucking, you know, and I'd show up, my presence, I'd still be there even though I was fucking clearly fucking out of my tree.
yeah,
But you
but
know,
as an
those,
intense person, how boring is that for you when you get no stimulation from your job? Like you're that intense of a person that, you know, obviously you're even probably like sex and love. So, you know, you're not getting any stimulation from your job, which is your main focus and your main look at me, look at what I do. So that had to have been like just death of going to work every day knowing that you can't get shit out of it.
yeah, and you know what too, and that was exactly, so blessing in disguise, but that was from that moment forward, like I was only 1 month into recovery at the time, so you know, I didn't like all this integrity and character and all that stuff, you know,
And
honesty
if
and
and if
whatever.
you're
It
doing that
still hadn't
good,
been,
yeah, if you were already making good money and you got 18 years of a severance package, that's a nice severance package where you can take a couple months to find yourself and figure out the next step, right?
well, you know, it's funny, so they actually, and this again, higher, you know, what you were saying, higher power doing for me what I could not do for myself, you know, they had given me the opportunity to stay on the books in case I could get my HR file and my security file transferred out of there. They just wanted me out of their hair kind of thing, you know. But I was still recognized, you know, I was basically getting paid being at home working on myself. And but nothing came through. I went to so many interviews in that time span. I went to so many, so it's really funny. So I got to work on myself, and I decided at that point, like just seeing the significant changes physically, you know. So I always say, you know, nutrition and fitness are viable approaches to my recovery, complemented by my 12-step program. Like I got to do that mind, body, soul work day in and day out, right? And for me, you know, from that moment forward, that John C. Maxwell quotes everything for me. And for me, like I approach recovery as a transformative process in and of itself, you know. It's about uncovering, discovering, and recovering ourselves on a daily basis, ongoing, lifelong, God willing. I'm in this shit for the long haul, you know,
Yeah, because
and
if you have if you told me you did, not if you did, you told me you had body dysmorphia in recovery, so that means you had to have had it in addiction, which would explain the sex addiction, which would explain if you were a bigger girl at the time because you were being unhealthy, you would have been self-conscious, so you would have been seeking fulfillment in anybody that's going to show you kind of love because you couldn't love yourself because of the way you looked.
hmm So, and it's funny that you hit on that, right? So, and in that, you know, into like the recovery as a transformational process, you know, it's not about abstinence, it's about improving our quality of life and improving our health and wellness, right? And the goal not to be clean and or sober, but loving ourselves enough to live addiction free fucking lives, you know. So I went into like health because it's all psychic, right? Everything begins and ends in the mind, you know. Even in the doctor's opinion, he says it, a psychic change is required to emotionally cope with life on life's terms. It's all fucking up here. My blind faith, it's all up here. My belief in a power greater than myself, it's all up here. I can't fucking see this shit. But you know, it's blind faith, it's all up here.
Yeah.
So getting the grasps, you know, one of the greatest gifts of recovery, not only the connections I've made, but, you know, one of my other greatest gifts of recovery today is having the power of choice back. The power to choose my fucking recovery, the power to choose myself
That's one of the
every
first things
fucking
I learned.
morning when I
It,
wake up.
yeah.
My mind, my sanity is back, you know,
Yep.
like
Yeah,
it
I
was,
remember. I don't know. I think he listens. This guy Joe, he was my sober living manager, and and I was an intense person at the meetings. So guess what? They had to take me to meetings. So him and I were always driving somewhere because he was taking me to meetings all over. And so he would always say though that right now we have the power to choose. As soon as we use again, we lose that choice. But right now we hold the power. So just always remember. So, and I've never forgot this. Every time I hear that, I always think of Joe. and I know he's back doing good again. And he goes to, well, it doesn't matter, but yeah, him and I always loved hearing that. So, and I remember when he relapsed, I was early on, and I was like, oh my God, what happens to all this advice? And they're like, no, his advice was still good. It just he stopped listening to his own advice.
Advice, yeah. And you know what? Like they say, right? Like our blessings cannot become our curses, and we got to be of service to ourselves before we could be of service to anybody else. And I find myself, a lot overextending myself and neglecting my own personal recovery because I'm into everybody, making sure and being of service to everybody else. And so sometimes I do have to wheel myself back in and be like, Alex, so that juncture point, and I was at a fucking juncture point last winter, but how
I feel called out right now. I feel like you're calling me out. I feel like my wife messaged you and told you to call me out. Like, because I've had this conversation about how doing 37 episodes in a row is fucking crazy. It's an intense thing. You know what I mean? So, like, it's a 90-hour-a-week thing to do something like that.
And recovery is coming to a harmonious, balanced, and aligned state of self, right? But it's finding that sweet spot in that, it's
and I'm justified. I'm like, it's a meeting for me. Every time I talk to somebody, it's a meeting, and I'm justifying.
It's easier said than done, and yeah, so that, like recognizing that, like self-discovery is a daily thing, right? And
that's why 10 is so important, and people forget to do 10 even though it's a daily thing. You would think that it being daily, that you would just automatically like, okay, I gotta look back at today now, and just do a 10. But a lot of people, they don't want to look back at the day, just want to end it and go on to the next one. And
I was like, back to fucking basics, Alex. Like, get fucking back to basics. I went and got a mindset transformational coach because I knew my mind needed I had still so much inner child work to do and subconscious mind work to do, that like things where I thought I had forgiven my father and all that. Like, no, like we did some inner, and my breakdowns were my very breakthroughs, but there's still so much deep healing work to be done. Just because I'm 4 years into recovery, my work is never fucking done.
Yeah,
it's daily, it's ongoing. Like, there's never fucking done. Got a new sponsor, started doing another round of formal step work, all the things that are tried, true, and tested. I don't make this shit up, folks. And yeah, but how I approach one thing is how I approach everything. But again, like going into the health and lifestyle coaching, I only work with other recovering addicts and alcoholics because of my own journey. And it's behavioral habit change. Again, the psyche,
yeah.
It's all in the mind, right? We're one decision away. We're one decision away from changing our entire lives. Had I fucking known that, but that, unbeknownst to me, on April 22nd, 2017, I would change my entire life. So,
it's so funny. It's funny because you're the closest one to my date that I've heard so far. But when it comes to like, the actual date, because for me it was a year later, but it was April 25th is when I got into rehab, 2018. Okay. So, but it was April 20th is when I first had the thought of rehab, and April 21st, 2018. So you were about to celebrate a year when I made the first phone call I've ever made to a rehab saying, hey, give me more information, on 8:00 on a Saturday night. And this guy talked to me for 2 hours on the phone in LA. And so that means you celebrated your 1 year on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Look at that, Matt. See, I knew I'd get there.
And it was crazy. My mom came down and everything, and she met like everybody. So it's really cool because.
Do you guys do cakes up there?
Yeah, we do cakes, but I don't eat cake.
Of course you don't. Yeah.
I let them choose what they want. Well, we haven't been back. My home group has not been back in a room in 23 months. We have not seen each other in person.
I feel so bad because like I literally opened a meeting center during the pandemic. You know what I mean? Like we host, well, right now we don't because we all got COVID. But before that, we opened in July and we had been hosting daily meetings for AA, NA. We do trauma, we do LGBTQ meetings. We cover so many different kinds of things when it comes to mental health, because mental health means so much to my wife and I. Like, we both lost somebody to suicide that was close to our lives that was also bipolar schizophrenic. Like, we both had that in common. You know, for her, it was her aunt. For me, it was my first fiance.
Yeah.
And so we both had that in common when we met, of like loss through mental health, of pain of somebody really, really close to them. And so we kind of trauma bonded over that, you know, and that's kind of what spilled over into like, well, we could do trauma meetings. They don't have to be AA or NA. They can be people, they can be normies that drink or, you know, whatever, and they want to come in just talk about their trauma, because maybe they start talking about their trauma and then all of a sudden they hear how I don't drink and they get intrigued. You know, just get them in the door. Just get them talking, because that talking is so important. Whether, for me, I got heavy into therapy. I did the step work. Like, I love the steps. That's why I still did them when I drank, 'cause I loved them so much. But I also got really deep into therapy, where I was like, I never learned how to be in a relationship, you know, because again, our ages, right, Alex? Like, when you start as young as we do, I realized, like, holy shit, I never learned anything.
Yeah. And you know what, and then going back to that, right, and like, so my thing is like, my ultimate goal, you know, I do have my national nonprofit, which I do also, you know, I
And then what's the name of that
feature
again?
feature recovery MVPs, Sober Active Canada. So I do feature what we call recovery MVPs. So just some amazing Canadians doing amazing things in the community up here. Except, like, let's get real, it's recovery without borders now. Like, everything is online.
That's
Because
awesome. Yeah.
even my locally based events, you know, and my live events now, I do both hybrid, I do virtual as well, where I do like guided meditation sessions and you know, a beginner workout session or group physical activities coupled with a 12-step style format meeting or healing circle, where we go into self-care as an important phase of recovery, or nutrition in recovery, fitness in recovery, you know. But my ultimate goal, so I really like your meeting center, is to open Canada's first recovery-based gym, where there would be all types of meetings in one location, one-stop shop. You can work out, like
Get the physical and
you
get
could
the
go to your
mental.
OA meeting, you can go to your NA meeting, you can go to your AA meeting, you can go to your CA meeting, you can go to any fucking meeting you want, you know, and be
Yeah.
able to offer that. There's a lot of that going on in the States. There's nothing yet here in Canada.
LA, and that's where I got it from. You know what I mean? It was, I got sober and you've been to LA. So did you hit any meetings when you were out there? Because the meetings out in LA are fucking amazing.
It was COVID time. I was lucky enough to even cross the border because I was on a national competitive
I feel
team.
so bad.
I was
Yeah,
the
the
only
NA
person at
is
the airport in Vancouver that morning that was
okay.
in line at the at food
International.
clearance
Yeah.
at US Customs. I was the
That's
only person in
wow,
line.
man. The meetings are so good in LA. That's what I got me so hooked, was how like intense, but like in a good way, where like it was passion, right? Because there's a difference between intensity and passion, I think,
Passion, yeah.
where like I can feel somebody's words, or like I'm afraid of your words, right? When you're intense about recovery, I'm like this, because you're coming at me and I'm like this. But when you're passionate about it, you're drawing me in, because that's why it's attraction, not promotion. I
Yeah.
I need to be attracted to what you're talking about, you know, because I got tricked into AA from my rehab, right? I didn't go there. I remember even distinctly messaging somebody being like, flying out there and be like, I'm not going to do AA. I'm just going out there to dry it out. I'm done with pills, blah, blah, blah. And then the only time you ever left the rehab was when you were, you know, at a meeting. And then you get excited to go to the meeting because it gets you out of the house and around other people again. And then next thing you know, you hear a message for the first time and then you're hooked. You
Yeah.
know, at least that's what happened for me, because you found the rooms differently, because you're like, I need to stop this. And for me, it was like, oh, we have to go here now. You
Well,
know.
it's funny because you had asked me, right, and we had spoken about that just like very briefly. But the planted seed, the mustard seed of fucking faith, that's all it fucking takes, right? So I had met a very young, a younger woman. We were in active addiction together, like the stuff we do, like it was just fucking nuts. But she was one of my little brothers, I'd call him, you know, I'd call him my little brother. I'd make my daughter call him her uncle, everything. He was over here all the time. We would just, that's all we were doing was getting high. You know, and and he was dating this girl, but I was like, assume yourself as a woman. He's fucking using you, you know? So they broke up, but she went completely like, she had a psychotic episode and everything, and committed herself, but she had found, you know, the rooms of NA. And she was about, so November 2016, you know, this was another lead up moment, rock bottom moment. I was fucking tweaked, like, and my door knocked at about 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 a.m., 9 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, I was here getting in another fucking codependent relationship with a much, much younger gentleman. And we're just here and I'm fucked. You know, my daughter's at school and my door is knocking. And it's a bailiff giving me a notice of foreclosure on my condo. Apparently the bank wants their money when you don't fucking pay your mortgage.
So weird. It's so weird.
Yeah,
They do it.
that's how
They
that
do it here
happens.
too. They do it in the United States too. It's ridiculous. It's like every month you want me to give you money every month. I gotta buy drugs every day, and you want money every month. Fuck. How about I send you $10 every day?
But
And
don't
we'll-
forget, here I am, fucking high ranking, fucking making a fucking pretty damn fucking good money for my age. I was making good money for my age fucking when I was
Yeah.
fucking 20 years old. Like, I am now at this point where me and my daughter, I work for a fucking deputy head of a government department, and me and my daughter are going to be living out of my fucking car. Alex, what the fuck? You have nothing to show. You are fucking ruining yourself.
However, you still went on for another 6 months.
So right then and there, I told the fucking dude, like, get out of my house, except I fucking connected with him 2 months later. But like, get out of my place. Like, this is it. I'm fucking done. Like, okay, and I gotta start calling people. I gotta fucking find this money to fucking pay my mortgage. Like, oh my God, there's just no way me and my fucking daughter could live on the streets. Like, what the fuck? I'm near homelessness here, and I'm fucking.
And what will
working at
people
the-
think of me?
You know, now it's starting to fucking crumble, isn't it, Alex? Now it's not fucking all from the outside and what's happening in the inside of your place. Now, like, now you're being fucking exposed.
People
This
know
is-
now.
This is some serious shit, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I actually, you know, the intent was there, the will bit, and willingness and turning it over and all that shit. I didn't even, like, that wasn't even a thought in my mind at the time. The intent was there, and I knew, like, I cannot fucking pick up today. Like, I need to pay this fucking mortgage off. You know, I ended up finding the money, obviously. We're resourceful like that, right? As addicts, we're very resourceful people. Actually, from one of my ex-boyfriends who was a coke dealer, lent me some money, and
You know what's funny is I've seen people say, like, how much money would you have if you've never, spent money on drugs? And I think the question's bullshit, because I wouldn't have had that money without that motivation. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I didn't spend money I had, I didn't, all the money that I was spending on the drugs, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, I never would have chased after that money and been that motivated to rob, cheat, and steal and manipulate somebody for that money just to, like, have, like, clout for money in my account.
yeah,
You know, that money had to be just, I think, for almost fucking guilt. I almost think for guilt's sake, I could never hold on to that kind of money for more than a second, right? I had to get it and then give it, get it and then get it, steal it and get it. I couldn't just out of straight guilt hold on to money, because I just felt like I didn't deserve it because I was such a piece of shit.
Well, it's funny because my mindset transformational coach, I had actually hired him because now that I was, like, mentally, mentally, physically, and spiritually fit, now it was time for me to get financially fit again. Obviously, clearly, I almost lost my condo, so it's not like, I'm not paying off those debts. Like, I got mad debt still, 4 years into recovery, still trying to pay off everything and get up to. But now it's time to start working and maybe focusing a little bit on my financial health, and
you'll get there. There's no time. That's what the beautiful thing is. No
Exactly.
timetable on it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I paid off the last of my addiction debts. Last April, I paid off the rest of my shit, and I still get some phone calls, but they're not going to get a dime from me. That's a whole other grudge thing that it's just a whole other thing. So, but
Yeah.
you know, that's the point of always being in recovery is there's always shit I'm gonna have to work on.
Exactly. It's a
You know,
daily, it's ongoing. It's a process,
yeah,
and trust it, and the details, the logistics, the timelines. That's not even in my hands anymore. That's all up to my HP. Like
yeah.
he's got that shit covered. I don't need to fucking rack my brain with it. I don't got the fucking answers. I know that I don't got any fucking answers.
I thought I did. You know,
Exactly.
I was my therapist and I was my pharmacist and I was, you know what I mean, the end all be all of like, you know,
Well,
I
you
can help you
couldn't
with
tell
your
me
problem.
shit differently. I was fucking right, and I was right all. And you don't call me smart Alex for nothing. But like, and but yeah.
Smart Alec.
So this girl that I had befriended that summer in active addiction. I knew that she was in the program, right? So that day when I got served that notice of foreclosure, I actually called her and just talked to her for a bit, and I didn't know it at the time. But then, so that New Year's, actually, funny enough, I went to the NA masquerade ball. I was the only person not wearing a mask, but I was still wearing a fucking mask because I got high 2 hours before that shit. And you'd think that because that was like 28 days after. I was clean. I was clean and sober for 28 days. Just total abstinence though, like total abstinence. I just cut it like that. I'm fucking done because I need to pay off my mortgage. I had something to work towards, but I got the money. So it was paid off and it was fine. And it was the holidays. So nobody was going to court anyways during that time. And I was keeping my condo. And so I got high that day because it was obviously New Year's Eve, not that I ever needed a fucking holiday
Excuse or
to
reason.
get right
Yeah.
drunk. But I had gotten high 2 hours before. But I said, if there's 2 hour period between me going to pick her up and going to this masquerade ball, I'm not high. I'll be fine. And I was the only one not wearing a mask. It's a masquerade ball. So like how befitting, how fucking what an analogy, like this fucking mask and facade and shit that I've put on for so long is like, and that you couldn't be quick enough. But I heard everybody's stories. Oh my God. Like I wanted to fucking, I just couldn't wait. Countdown was on. 12, like 10, 9, 8, 7. Happy New Year. Alex was fucking out of
Getting the
there
fuck
so
out of there and
quick.
getting so high.
And then I had that last like 4 or 5 month fucking rampage, last hurrah. I don't know what you want to call it, but got into
I
like
call it a run. I'll call it a run. You know what I mean? I'll call it a run.
it was.
And
I didn't know it was the real beginning of the end because now I was a mess, and that again. So reconnecting with that guy, that codependent relationship, just it was now just gotten to the point of ridiculousness. Like it was just the shit my daughter was living, that she had been living anyways. But like now Alex just doesn't fucking even care about anything at all anymore. And
yeah,
really
and
isolating
that's
myself.
that's tough to like go through that like almost month and then I'm not even gonna call it a relapse because you weren't really trying,
No,
but then
exactly.
then to use again and then have to hear all these stories like for the first time really, and NA is much more raw than AA. Let's be
Mhm.
real, like you can almost spot the recovery between the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could have I've been around enough rooms where you could have been like, guess what fellowship I'm part of the most, or you know what I mean? Like I would have guessed that because of the intensity. AA is more like laid back and NA is more like do this shit or fucking die. Like obviously AA didn't even work for you, and that's why you're here, kind of deal, like the kind of intensity. That's the way I felt
Mhm.
about it in LA. Was those meetings were the real fucking deal. And wherever you go to where there's crazy addiction, you're gonna find amazing sobriety too.
Yeah.
And people were like always forget you're going Los Angeles, a party city. You're going there for a recovery. I'm like, yeah, but a lot of them get sober. You
I
know.
and I and I met, and like that was one of a highlight in my recovery. I met some of the fucking recovery fucking warriors and, you know, my community people out there, you know, that I'd only known on Instagram. Like every day I was meeting somebody different, and some of these people I'm very, very fucking close with today, you know. So it's been a highlight of my recovery, but again, coming back right in that whole emotional crash and starting to go into an emotional hangover, but recognizing it, you know, and identifying it and being like, something's got to fucking give, and it's time to go back to basics and work on yourself thoroughly again, you know, and rigorously. And yeah, but yeah, so I went to that masquerade ball, and then that fucking, you know, I just went out on a fucking rampage. I would call it a rampage. And the weekend before April 22nd, 27th, this was probably the real, for some reason though, I continued on for one more week, but you know, this was probably a huge, moment for me, you know, as much as like those 5-minute intervals, I was done. Um, the weekend before, like on the Sunday, I was here, and my so it got to the point where my dealers weren't coming to my house anymore. You know, when your dealers have cause for concern and telling you to get off the fucking street and not come into your house, or telling you not to meet them and not fucking be out on the streets. When your dealer has cause for concern, there's a fucking problem.
You know why I'm laughing, right? You know why I'm laughing? Because when I decided to go to rehab, I owed my dealer $1,800. And when I called him to say, hey, man, I don't know what to do, but I owe you this money, but I have to go to rehab, he said to me, dude, you either pay me the money, you said go to rehab, and I never hear from you again, and you don't owe me a dime. But if I hear that you relapsed, I want my money. So when your dealer is giving you that kind of out, so yeah, I get that kind of like, oh wow, this must be really bad if he's like just giving me an out of $2,000.
Yeah. So I actually went and picked up off of, which is, you know, like in a total final act of desperation. Like I was so fucking desperate, you know, the things I was doing, like to get my shit at this point. I went across town, picked up off of a dude I fucking never met. And I will tell you what, for having done cocaine for that long in my life, what I put up my nose that day definitely was not fucking cocaine. I don't know what I fucking put up my nose. I will never know what I put up my nose, but all I know is that in a drug-induced psychosis, I thought the only way to fucking ever get down from that high was going to be to kill myself. Luckily enough, I had somebody fucking talk me through it for fucking 15 fucking hours. You know, don't sleep, don't fucking do this, don't do that, stay on the phone with me, like fucking talk to me. Like it was fucking crazy. But I don't
And
know.
for someone who's
now you
done
can't
like,
even trust the shit on the street no more either that you're fucking taking. Like everything,
and
like, you know.
you think it was fentanyl because you had done everything else. You know what I mean? You had
I
literally
do
done
not.
all like, all the
I
kind of
don't know if it was because I
hallucinogenics.
never tried fentanyl. Like, you know, like I cannot tell you what I fucking put up my nose. I don't know what I fucking put up my nose.
Yeah,
It
I
was
could
fucking crazy.
yeah, because I could see it being that, because I could see you going into like your body withdrawals, and all of a sudden you would go into a deep depression where you would want to kill yourself, because that's the whole point of it, is so that you would, if you knew what it was, that's the whole point of what that guy gave you. Like, you're like, okay, hey buddy, I need more of what you just had so I can get right again. That's kind of unfortunately, but fortunately for you, you didn't choose to go and get more. A lot of us say to ourselves, oh, I'll just do that again and this will take it away. Instead, you decided, oh, whatever I did might have just killed me and I need to never do that again. So that saved your life, that conscious decision, because you could have easily went down that hole where with that new dealer that you would have now manipulated until he got a cause of concern. Because that's what we do, is we push away our dealers until we get new ones, then we push them away, and then they realize, oh, this person's bad and I don't want to be responsible for them. And that's what happens when you're a functioning addict like us,
Yeah.
as opposed to the street addict who has 20 different people that they don't get fronts from. They walk up with cash and you walk by and it's a quick transaction. I feel like your dealers are like mine, where you had intimate conversations. You knew each other. You know what I mean? You didn't just talk about the drugs when
You
you
were my best
texted.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. We talked hockey. You know what I mean? Like, my God, like we talked about sports. We would go back and forth. We would bullshit about our day.
Some
So,
would come hang out at my dining room table with
but
the
it
rest
was
of us
my
and
way of
chill and fucking have a drink or two and fucking,
but
okay, you guys want more? Here you go, bang,
in retrospect, that was just our way of manipulating a relationship so that it serves us. And when I looked back, I realized, like, oh, that was me just manipulating the relationship so that he would feel guilty every time I was withdrawn and he would actually throw me fronts. Because I always needed a front. I was that guy who's like, hey, man, can you front me, but I'll get you back a lot. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah, sure, because they knew I would pay him back because I would keep coming back. And they would feel guilty or feel bad because they know how bad I was hurting because I was very vocal about it. I recover out loud, but I told you out loud, if you were my dealer, how bad I was withdrawing. If I got high with you, you knew if I was in it or not. You knew if I was sweating it out or if I was good. So, yeah, I might recover out loud, but I was also sending Snapchats of me snorting giant lines to people that are still might pop up my Snap history sometimes.
I really like how you come back to that. And again, it goes back to my chasing my recovery. Like I used to chase my fucking addiction, right? But how you're saying, you recovered out. Of course, I'm going to fucking recover out loud. Of course, my daughter, recovery is a family affair. Of course, my daughter's going to be highly involved and implicated in my fucking recovery because I didn't fucking hide my fucking addiction from anyone. I thought I was hiding it. I thought I was doing a great job of hiding it.
Yeah.
She tells me today, like, you guys were all in the fucking bathroom at the same time. There's no way you had allergies together.
Yeah. Just all in there. Just all of you
Jamaican cigarettes, my Jamaican cigarettes.
Oh man, yeah. See,
but yeah. So and I wasn't at the end. I wasn't hiding it from no one. So yeah, that was a huge. That was like, okay, now I can't even trust the shit I'm fucking doing. Like there something's got to give. And then that the 1 week later, unbeknownst to me, on April 22nd, 2017, I would I would change the entire course of my fucking life. And here I am today.
I am actually going
to end it.
I am actually going to end it there because it's so serendipitous that you answered my first question finally. So, like, that was my initial question, was what was going on for you to send you into, like, recovery? But remember, I asked you what your clean date was, and you told me, I said, okay, what was going on for you that day before? And then we went off topic for an hour and a half to end back with what got you into recovery the day before. So I think it's the perfect way to end it, is because we just drew a giant circle of recovery and your story right back to the end, right to the beginning. And I fucking love how that worked out. Like,
like, I don't ever prepare for these things.
Neither do I.
Even my own lives. Like, I tell the person, I'm like, please don't post shit about your story. Like, I don't want to know anything about don't send me any posts about your story. Like, I want it as organic and fucking natural as it could possibly be.
Yeah. The last one I just interviewed before you, she was sending me all this stuff because her and her husband have a unique story of finding drugs and alcohol together and then getting sober together. So it's a little different than being in active addiction and meeting each other, right? So, she's sending me these books and I'm like, no, unsend them. I can't look because I'll read it and I don't want to know about you. I have to find out in the moment or else my questions are going to be shit. You're going to realize I'm reading off paper. And yeah, I have to be organic and it has to be real. And that's where I had the most fun with it.
Yeah. And that's what I say. And that's even how I start my shares, even in the rooms. I said, I'm just carrying the message that's intended to me. If you don't fucking like what I say, fucking take it up with my higher power or get your seventh tradition back. Like, whatever. I don't know I don't know what the fuck's gonna come out of my mouth. Like, I ask him.
That's how I started a lot of shares too. I'd be like, I'm Jane, I'm alcoholic. I know I need to talk about something. I'm not really sure what it is, but I know it's going to start coming out. Just give me a second. And then I'll get into it and not even realize I'll talk for 5 minutes for my allotted time. And then I'll realize that's what I need to talk about. And I just know, like, it's that urge. Like, I need to talk. I need to say something, but I don't know what it is. But I know that it'll come out and I'm going to feel better once I do it.
Yeah.
and it's just that urge of just I gotta just get this out. And I was really big on that in meetings early on. I think that's why I like doing the podcast as much as I do, because I'm finding the same satisfaction of just talking whenever I can.
And I like that too, and and I just vibe off of like whoever my guest is or whoever I'm, but that's the experiences our teacher, whether it be our own lived experience or somebody else's experience, strength and hope, right? So I fucking love this. This was dope. Because
Yeah.
I did not really fucking know you. Like, and then you said, oh, you're going to have to like hockey. And I'm like, Courtney, I fucking hate hockey.
And what did we not talk about?
I totally thought you were Canadian too. I'm like, who is this dude? Fucking, I saw him with Jeff last week or whatever, and oh my god, like he's all into the Oilers. Holy shit, he must be fucking from Edmonton.
Nope. I never even been to Edmonton. And actually, the cities I have been to in Canada are the ones that you've lived in, except for Ottawa. I haven't been to Ottawa, but I've been to Niagara Falls a bunch of times.
Okay.
I've been to Toronto. I've been to old Quebec City. I've been to Montreal. I've been to the old fucking Olympic Stadium in Montreal. I saw the Phillies and the Expos play there back in '95. I've been to the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. You know what I mean? So like, I've been to the Sky Dome in Toronto.
Okay.
I have dinner at that restaurant that oversees the state.
The Rogers Center now.
The Rogers Center now, yeah. But this was back in '95.
Yeah.
You know, so like again, like and I love all the architecture up there, especially in old Quebec City. So like when that guy Luigi reached out to me, I'm like, hell yeah, I'll do your podcast. I love your city, bro. Like, and he's like, oh, my city, you'll see my show, and like he goes off, but. Yeah, thank you again so much. Like, had a great time, getting to know you.
I loved it. Always good to connect with new people and stuff, and I'll be following you more religiously now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whenever you want me on your show too, I know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm honorary, right? I can be honorary. Is that a thing? Can I be honorary Canadian for your show? Because
so I just recently did Martin from Serenities because I was good friends with him, but I'm really good friends with his wife, so who we lost a few weeks ago. Who was so he was the owner of Serenities, but so I did put up a memorial piece for him, and so he's like my honorary Canadian or whatever right now. But I will, during Recovery Month, I did do 2 previously, like a couple of years ago, except I pulled them from my page because we're no longer, they don't represent the, my values and principles are no longer aligned. So I disassociated myself with that brand and those people.
It happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, and for what it's worth, there's like, pictures of me. And I remember I did was it 2000? Yeah, it was the summer 2016 at my house. My brother and we threw a big beer Olympics. And, everyone's different, like, countries and shit like that. And my brother picked first, of course. He was buying the beer, so he was America. So he did that whole thing. But I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm being Canada anyway. That's my motherland. That's hockey. Like, that's. So I found 2 other people to join my team that were huge hockey nerds like me. And that was our team Canada. We won a bunch of gold medals. So I do have pictures of me sporting Canada red. And shit, with gold medals around my neck, maybe not for weightlifting like you did, but still it was for beer pong and shit.
I do want to like for Recovery Month, like I'm thinking of doing that again this year, is having like 2 like prominent international people or whatever, international from the States.
I know. What is your guys' Recovery Month? Is it September?
We do. So it's not nationally recognized. We still have a motion in the House trying to pass for the last since before COVID, but obviously it's kind of taken a fucking back burner.
Yeah.
But we recognize it. Like I recognize it the month of September as well. And then we do have like the city of Ottawa has Recovery Day Ottawa in the month of September. A lot of the cities, Recovery BC. So now it's not just Vancouver anymore. It's the entire province celebrates Recovery Day. It's pretty huge. It's pretty huge. Cool. Like, and I was quite surprised that, so Recovery Day Ottawa this year, we actually got to, and it's a very small, it's a public service town, but, so it's not like one of the big cities, not Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver whatsoever, right? Not even on that scale. But, and there was such a good turnout this year. It was the first time it was back. Like hopefully it'll be in person again next year. It was like the only first in-person thing in recovery in fucking so long, So it was nice to see some fucking people that like were just newcomers, like fucking before the pandemic hit, and I'm like, yes, you're still going fucking hard, you know?
Yeah, it'll get better, At least like it'll be more appreciation for being in the
Right.
rooms again.
Well, what I just want them to stop fucking doing, it's like leave me in fucking lockdown. Just do that. I'm fucking used to it, Don't give me my fucking gym back for fucking 3 months and then fucking
take
pull
it.
my plug again.
Yeah.
And still leave the liquor store and the fucking pot, because out here in Quebec, like our pot dispensaries are government commissioned, right? Like it's a government. So of course those are open, because they're still making money, right?
Oh, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I see it's the same thing here too. So, but either way, thank you.
But our curfew's being lifted on Sunday.
Well, I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
Because
too.
I'm sure it got lifted before.
Yeah,
So,
it did.
knock on some wood there and we won't jinx it. And hopefully, things start getting better. But hey, it's not in our control. So whenever it does, it does. And then just enjoy the relaxation while you can.
Exactly. I'm in lockdown mode.
Now you can record more episodes. You have the time.
Okay.
So, but all right, I'll see you.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too. See you later.